Okay, okay. I got my lives back. Good, good, good. Good morning, good morning, good morning, good morning. I don't know why TikTok be trying to take my damn heart away, bro. Am I lying? I got some stuff in the news. With that being said, let's get it.
As part of its war with Hezbollah. Thousands of Lebanese people were displaced in the major southern city of Tyre after Israel launched destructive strikes there. The World Health Organization says more than 600 people inside Lebanon have been killed in Israeli attacks since a ceasefire there came into effect in April. Amid the escalating violence, President Trump dismissed pressure to end the war with Iran as peace efforts continue to stall.
They're negotiating on fumes. We'll see what happens. Maybe we have to go back and finish it. Maybe we don't. Right now, I think it looks like they want to just make a deal. They want to. I don't think they have a choice.
NBC News international correspondent Matt Bradley joins us now from Tel Aviv with the very latest. So, Matt, in the space of a week, we've gone from being close to a peace deal to seeing more and more of these flare-ups. Tell us about this latest exchange of strikes between the U.S. and Iran and just where it leaves any possible peace talks.
Yeah, I mean, it's enough to leave you dizzy, isn't it? And all of this whiplash going back and forth, it's certainly not going to be reassuring to those allies and trading partners throughout the world who are really hoping to see the Strait of Hormuz cleared and international shipping be open to everyone. Now, these peace talks appear to have pushed back and forth primarily because, it looks as though neither side has really been able to bridge the main disagreements that are left, and that is the fate of Iran's nuclear program. The United States insists that Iran should never have access to nuclear weapons, even though Iran has long ago said that they're not trying to get nuclear weapons, and also the fate of the Strait of Hormuz. It looks as though the Iranians still want to see some level of control over the Strait of Hormuz beyond what they enjoyed before the war began with that joint American and Israeli offensive against Iran. So what we're seeing now is Iran trying to actually take more power in the Strait of Hormuz than they had as a result of this fight. And we're also seeing that there's major complications in terms of what the Iranians feel they're entitled to. They say lifting of U.S. sanctions and some relief money, basically reparations for the damage that they endured at the hands of American and Israeli airstrikes. For the Americans, most of these items are non-starters. But as President Trump has said, he thinks that the Iranians are in a corner. The Iranians clearly, and have for the past several weeks, believe that they have the upper hand.
So then the president has talked a lot about the Strait of Hormuz and the prospects of a deal, especially during this cabinet meeting he held yesterday. But there was a moment where he also appeared to threaten a U.S. ally, Oman. What did he say? What's that all about?
He said that they were going to bomb Oman, and there was a lot of confusion, especially online, that maybe he meant Iran, because that was the kind of bellicose language that he normally uses for American enemies like Iran, not an ally like Oman across the Strait of Hormuz from Iran. Part of the Strait of Hormuz comes under Omani waters, and it was Oman that in the past couple of weeks the Iranians had said were negotiating for a more permanent sort of partnership in governing over the Strait of Hormuz. As I mentioned just a moment ago, the Iranians seem to be vying for more political and commercial power over the strait, which traffics in about 20% of the world's oil. So it is hard for me to explain why the president would go from seeing Oman as a major partner, which it has been in negotiations throughout the Middle East, particularly with the Iranians, for more than a generation now, to go from that to threatening to actually attack this country that has been a strong American partner. The only thing I can guess is that it has to do with the fact that the Omanis had been trying to make a deal, according to the Iranians, with the Iranians for the future governance of the Strait of Hormuz. A deal that, according to reporting, kind of didn't include anything about the United States.
Matt, on top of all of this, as we mentioned, the situation in Lebanon is growing more and more dire. Over the past few days, we've seen some of the most intense Israeli bombardments after the IDF expanded the
Tap the screen, please.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing is, as you mentioned in your introduction, the Israelis demanding that more evacuations occur in that area, that lip right over Israel's Lebanon and a little bit beyond it. But here in Israel, this is turning into a major political scandal for the Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu. There are so many voices within the military, within rival politicians, demanding that Benjamin Netanyahu restart the war against Hezbollah in Lebanon. He has said that they're expanding operations. They have been operating at an extremely high level for the past several weeks, even despite that ceasefire, which, according to almost every side involved, that ceasefire exists almost entirely in name only. Here in Israel, the Prime Minister is getting a lot of grief for what is being seen by Israelis as the United States handcuffing Israeli operations in Lebanon, meaning that Israel is trying to prosecute a full-on, all-singing, all-dancing war against Hezbollah, while at the same time trying to turn around and tell Washington that they are observing a ceasefire. So essentially, they're doing neither. They're neither observing the ceasefire nor going after Hezbollah as strongly as they want to. And it is the residents of northern Israel, those civilians who have been facing repeated attacks by highly effective Hezbollah wire-guided munitions, drones, who are paying the full price. This is one of the main issues that Benjamin Netanyahu is going to be facing as he comes up for the election before the end of October. Why he isn't able to tell Washington and President Trump that he wants to break the ceasefire in the Persian Gulf and govern his war with Hezbollah separately outside of the negotiations between Iran and the U.S. and Israel on the other side. That is becoming a critical question politically here in Israel.
All right, Matt Bradley in Tel Aviv. Matt, thank you so much.
We've got some breaking news this morning out of Washington. Earlier today, a federal judge declined to block President Trump's executive order tightening rules on mail-in voting.
The order, signed in March, directed his administration to compile a list of U.S. citizens who are eligible to vote in each state. The move is seen as a major loss for Democrats who argue the order could disenfranchise millions of voters across the country.
NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grunbach joins us now with more on this and some other headlines from Washington for us. Gary, good morning. First, just walk us through what this decision could mean for voters.
So this was an executive order that would have essentially created a federal list of voters that the United States Postal Service would have then only been allowed to send ballots to those federally created list of voters. Of course, elections in this country are run by the states, not by the federal government. So Democrats, including the Democratic National Committee, sued over this executive order. And just this morning, a federal judge here in Washington saying that this executive order can stand for now because Democrats right now are not actually harmed by anything that this executive order does because they haven't actually created this federal list yet. Now, we've seen across the country separate lawsuits of the federal government trying to get voter rolls lists from states around the country. There have been at least 8 judges that have denied those lawsuits from the federal government already. So clearly some trouble from the Trump administration at some point as it relates to elections. But Judge Carl Nichols here in D.C. essentially saying, come back when there's real harm to Democrats.
Gary, let's go back in time a little bit. Former First Lady Jill Biden sat down with CBS News for an interview. Some of what she is saying about the 2024 campaign, specifically her husband's debate performance, is just sending shockwaves through Washington. What can you tell us?
Yeah, former First Lady Jill Biden finally coming clean about what she actually thought about that 2024 debate performance that was widely panned after President Joe Biden appeared to be halting, appeared to be stumbling, appeared to not remember certain answers to questions there. In an interview ahead of a release of the memoir that she is writing about the 2024 election and her experience in the White House in the years prior, she told CBS that she thought her husband was having a medical emergency. Watch this.
I was frightened because I had never, ever seen Joe like that before or since. As I watched it, I thought, oh my God, he's having a stroke. And it scared me to death.
Now, candidly, there's a little bit of cleanup here on the First Lady's part because of the fact that in the hours and days after that debate, all of his advisors, all of his family members were saying there's nothing to see here. He's doing just fine. Of course, there were a lot of concerns about the man's age and about the man's well-being after that point. And that debate performance is what eventually led him to drop out of the race for re-election. Yes.
Gary, there's one more story we got out of Washington. It really sounds like something out of a movie. This is some reporting that you did for NBCNews.com. It has to do with the CIA agent. Millions of dollars he's accused of here of stashing in gold bars in his home. And that's actually not all. What's going on here?
This is a wild story, guys. This was a senior CIA officer, a senior executive level individual who asked for close to $40 million in gold bars. That's about 303 gold bars, millions of dollars in foreign currency from what he said was work purposes. He got all of that, they gave it to him, and then he brought much of it home to his house in Virginia.
Tap screen.
He was arrested last week. He also had 35 luxury watches on him. Many of them were Rolex in brand. The CIA says they did an internal investigation alongside the FBI and then went and arrested this individual. But the story, as you said, does not actually stop there. He has lied for 2 decades about his educational background, saying he was a graduate of Clemson, saying he had a master's degree. Both schools saying he had none of that. They have no record of him. He even said he was a pilot in the Navy. The FAA says he doesn't even have a license to be a pilot at all. So this man was creating an absolute persona for himself that did not exist, but he was still a government employee for almost 20 years.
Right, that is something. Does sound like a movie. Gary, thank you.
The governor of Washington State says the blast at a packaging plant there might be one of the deadliest industrial accidents in state history. Officials say the search for missing workers is no longer a rescue mission, but a recovery effort. They do not expect to find any survivors. NBC News national correspondent Morgan Chesky has the latest.
The stunning new video shows the devastation inside a Washington plant moments after the deadly rupture of a massive chemical tank.
On 3.01 industrial waste on hazmat burn.
A toxic surge inside a packaging plant, leaving trucks flipped over or crushed. Seen here in video obtained by an independent journalist. The leaking tank partially collapsed. Authorities confirm at least 2 people are dead and 9 still missing from the implosion early Tuesday.
This was a shift change time. They were operating and they were in their workspaces when this blast occurred.
The cause still unknown.
We do not know where all 9 are. We have searched the area that is searchable.
The tank holds nearly 1 million gallons of white liquor, sodium-based chemical used in paper manufacturing that can cause severe burns if not properly handled, enough to fill more than an Olympic-sized swimming pool.
Authorities have now sealed off the entire plant as recovery efforts intensify. That leaked chemical so powerful, even firefighters reported damage to their own gear.
The steam pipe was so big, it covered everything. You couldn't see through it.
Eli Bernal was working at the plant. Today, he and his sister remembering their father, 52-year-old Gilbert Bernal, who they say showed up for a shift just minutes before the implosion.
He was just a very genuine person, and just within minutes of me talking with him, he felt like he'd known him for a lifetime.
Hundreds gathered to pray and support the families, now left for answers.
I know they can't give us all the details, but I still want to know what happened to my dad.
Our thanks to Morgan Chesky for that report. Federal investigators are now on the scene. They're working to figure out what caused the implosion and whether it could have been prevented. The company that owns the plant released a statement expressing its condolences to the families who lost them.
Just 2 weeks ago until the start of the 2026 FIFA World Cup, an investigation is underway into soaring ticket prices and practices by soccer's governing body.
The attorneys general for New York and New Jersey have issued subpoenas to FIFA. They want the organization to disclose how it arrived at what the New Jersey AG called impossibly high prices for tickets to the tournament. Now, though, with those subpoenas, they're looking for specific details about the 8 matches that are going to be held at MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, just minutes from New York City. That includes the World Cup final taking place on July 19th.
NBC News legal analyst Misty Maris joining us here on set for more on these legal troubles for FIFA. Misty, good morning. Thanks for joining us. There's been a lot of talk about just how expensive these tickets are. A lot of it also, though, resale. Somebody gets their hands on them and then jacks that price way up. But there's also things that like the location of where some are at the stadium was a little misleading. So what are the real red flags legally? What is it that New York and New Jersey are alleging here?
So this investigation is looking into 2 core issues. First, whether or not there was a bait and switch, that people were buying tickets to the World Cup. They were shown certain zones on a seating map. They purchased tickets in those zones. Then they received the tickets, and they are wildly different. And so the allegation is that this was deceptive. And the other piece of this is that statements made by FIFA and their ticketing practices of dynamic pricing, meaning the price changed based on availability, based on demand, was actually driven up with this false scarcity. So that there was this air of, you got to get these tickets now, you got to get these tickets now, only for the price to be driven up over the course of the past, months that we've been talking about these escalating prices.
So FIFA's president was asked about this last October, about the high prices. He cited that there's limited supply, there's this worldwide demand. I know I have full disclosure tickets to one of the matches.
Wow,
and it's expensive. Yeah,
It's really expensive.
How did you get that? For those, just persistence, I guess.
And you have an extra.
Right, right. Not right now. Maybe I'll resell it. But people might be wondering, I mean, we got 2 weeks to go. What possibly happened here? And could it mean people get money back or something? What are the possibilities?
Yeah, so this is an investigation, and basically it would mean a potential action, depending on what comes from that, of a consumer frauds type case under deceptive business practices. This could be New York, this could be New Jersey. Remember, California had also sent a letter to FIFA asking for some of the same information. So you could have multiple AGs pursuing legal action against FIFA, and if it were to be successful, so this is a long way down the road, you could have restitution, you could have money paid back to customers, you could have fines. The other aspect is that there could be an injunction to change practices. We're a little late for that now because we're right at the threshold of these matches actually taking place.
There's one other legal trouble threat here for FIFA. This is this nonprofit group demanding that it lift its ban on a pre-revolutionary Iranian flag. Explain what's going on with this one.
Yeah, so what they're saying is that there's a ban to fly this flag at the FIFA tournaments, and that is actually violative of free speech. Now, what FIFA has said is that they have a code of conduct of neutrality, no political speech, and it's important to remember FIFA, at least as far as the United States is concerned, it's a private organization. So the First Amendment only applies to the government suppressing speech, not to private organizations, which can regulate certain types of things based on the fact that they are a private entity. So the legal question would be, how closely connected are they to states when it comes to using public stadiums, public areas, and whether or not there's an argument that it is actually state action. But the private entity itself, you don't have a First Amendment right there, you don't have that First Amendment argument, but there is a potential legal issue when it comes to that involvement of the state.
Interesting. Misty Maris, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The U.S. Coast Guard says it's going to reopen the search for Lynette Hooker. She's the woman who's been missing since April, when her husband says she fell overboard in the Bahamas. A U.S. official familiar with the matter tells NBC News the Coast Guard is now reopening its search because Brian Hooker's story doesn't add up. They say new GPS evidence appears to contradict what he told investigators about where he was the night his wife went missing. We reached out to Brian Hooker's legal team for comment, but have yet to hear back. Morning news, now weather, and a look at the forecast as the weekend approaches.
Al Roker joins us again today with the details. Hey, Al.
Good morning, guys. Well, we're looking at showers and thunderstorms now starting to pop up, especially from the Gulf all the way up into the Central Plains. So that's going to be the pattern for today. This front will be dropping down locally heavy showers, stretching from Kansas to Florida. Isolated flood risk with some of these heavy downpours. Then tomorrow, the focus is really going to be down into the southeast with these showers and thunderstorms, especially down in and around Florida tomorrow. We're talking from Naples all the way up to Wichita, Kansas, anywhere from 1 to maybe 3 inches of rain. And temperature-wise, we've got what we call kind of this omega block. Low pressure both ends of the country, high pressure in between, and where that upward slope of the jet stream goes, we are looking for record highs with that kind of Greek omega letter right there. Fargo, 94 degrees, you betcha, March. 93 in Billings. Seattle's going to be 77 degrees. Buffalo, a little chillier. We're looking out west where temperatures are going to stay a little on the cool side. And then tomorrow, New York City, not too bad. Temperatures pretty solid where they are. Chicago's going to see temperatures in the low 80s, mid-80s in Bismarck. And then as we head into next week, temperatures cool off a bit. By Saturday, Boston, you're only at 55. Cleveland, you'll warm up by Monday to 76. Look at low 80s into St. Louis. And as we move into next week, much cooler weather as we stretch mid-Atlantic into the southwest, but warmer than average from the west coast all the way up into the plains. That's your latest weather. Back to you.
Now, thanks so much. Much more to come here on Morning News. Now, later this hour, an incredible discovery caught on camera. 5 men trapped in a flooded cave for days, found alive rescuers who found them, plus the latest on the search for 2 people still missing.
Up first, though, after the break, the White House vowing to keep Ebola out of the U.S., restricting precautions for screening and quarantine next.
Tap the screen, tap the screen.
Welcome back. The Trump administration is ramping up its response to the growing Ebola outbreak in Africa, vowing to prevent the spread of the disease here in the U.S. Starting today, there will be increased screenings at several airports for travelers coming into the country from parts of Central Africa. Comes as the White House is also preparing a quarantine facility in Kenya where Americans exposed to the disease will be forced to isolate. NBC News senior national correspondent Stephanie Gosk has the latest details.
As Ebola cases in Africa surge, the Trump administration vowing it won't spread here.
We cannot and will not allow any cases of Ebola to enter the United States.
The White House announcing it will set up a state-of-the-art facility in Kenya to treat Americans infected by the deadly virus in Africa, offering them life-saving care as quickly as possible. The CDC also taking steps to stop the spread, making an urgent call to its staff. Volunteers are needed at major U.S. airports to screen travelers. Only Washington Dulles, Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson, George Bush Airport, and Houston, and now New York's JFK will accept U.S. citizens traveling from the Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, and Uganda. At the airport, they'll be taken to a designated screening area where they will complete a brief questionnaire and have their temperature checked, according to the CDC. Those without symptoms are free to leave, but are asked to immediately contact public health officials if symptoms develop. Dr. Ashish Jha is a public health expert.
That kind of screening is a really important part of making sure that we don't get people coming in with Ebola who we're not aware of.
Non-U.S. citizens, including green card holders who have traveled to the affected region in the last 3 weeks, are temporarily banned from coming into the U.S. In Africa, there are close to 1,000 verified cases and more than 200 people dead. But there are fears the Ebola outbreak is far bigger, and it is spreading fast.
If someone arrives to the screening center and there is a reasonable suspicion they have Ebola, they will be transported safely to a designated hospital where they will be isolated, tested for Ebola, and if they have it, that's when the treatment will begin. Back to you.
All right, Steph, thank you. Well, for more on how the U.S. is handling this outbreak, let's bring in Lawrence Gostin, who's a distinguished university professor at Georgetown and director of the World Health Organization Collaborating Center on National and Global Health Law. Lawrence, good morning. Thanks for being here. Let's start just with your reaction to this new screening protocol here in the United States at airports. Do you think this is an effective way to prevent Ebola from coming into the country?
Well, in short, no. I mean, during the West Africa Ebola outbreak, we weren't able to pick up any cases at our airports. I think it's the American public does support these kinds of screenings. I do too. If somebody comes into the United States, they should be screened. So that doesn't trouble me, but I don't think it's going to solve the problem at all. It never has. We have to deal with this right at the source, which is in Central Africa.
So let's talk here a little bit about what that does mean within these African countries. One official said that there's this facility in Kenya that it's meant to get Americans faster access to care and avoid like a long medical evacuation flight. But you have said unprecedented. What are your biggest concerns for that kind of containment strategy?
Well, in every previous Ebola outbreak, there's been 17 in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Democratic and Republican presidents have always brought sick Americans back to be treated in specialized
I'll be back in a second, y'all. Home.
United States, in Atlanta, Nebraska, and other
Nah, I'm not
places
even gonna cover it up.
really high quality medical care, and that saved a number of lives. I worry that this is going to possibly cost American lives because it's impossible to stand up a facility in a foreign country like Kenya and expect it to have the kind of high quality, world-class quality care that you need. Ebola is a very complex and it's a lethal disease. Unless we get the care to Americans that they need, we could have severe consequences. That has to be soil.
What have we learned from previous outbreaks about how to effectively handle an outbreak like this that we're seeing right now?
Yeah, well, travel restrictions have never worked. I think airport screening is fine. It's proven, but it's we don't usually pick up cases. Main thing is to surge resources into the area, and I worry about that. First, the United States is really not very visible in these three countries where the outbreak is taking place. We don't have USAID. CDC is remarkably weakened. And so I think that the outbreak control at source is really suffering because of the United States' absence.
What else do you want people to know about staying safe in the middle of an outbreak, especially if you have any travel plans here?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I mean, for the general public, this really isn't a risk. Ebola requires really exposure to bodily fluids, and so if you're just going about your everyday life, it should be fine. Traveling in the United States, traveling to Europe and other places around the world, I don't think there's going to be any kind of a significant risk to you. Of course, if you're traveling to the region, then it's very important to seek advice from your doctor and also from the State Department and US CDC.
All right, Lawrence Gostin, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation.
Thank you for having me, Samantha.
Well, let's stay with international news and some good news. We're about to show you the incredible moment. 5 men trapped in a flooded cave in Laos were found after being there for more than a week. NBC News international correspondent Janice Mackey-Fair spoke with one of the rescue divers about this dramatic moment and also the ongoing effort to find the 2 people still missing.
Deep inside a flooded cave in Laos, through muddy water and narrow tunnels, they found them. 5 men huddled on a ledge, cold, famished, but unhurt. Thank you, said one of the survivors in dramatic video shot by divers. Outside, volunteers were elated, yet now the real work begins, to find 2 others still missing and get all of them out. We spoke with one of the rescuers who said the men cried when they saw him.
They really grabbed them there and shouting and grabbed him.
The group went into the cave last week to search for gold when heavy rain triggered a flash flood that blocked the entrance with mud and debris. The rescue team from Thailand was involved in the 2018 operation that got 12 boys and their soccer coach out of a cave after 18 days. This rescue will be no less difficult. The survivors, nearly 1,000 feet inside tunnels that are less than 2 feet wide at parts, complicated by potentially contaminated air and anxiety. For now, divers are getting supplies to the group to help build up their strength to soon make the daring journey out. Janice Mackey-Fair, NBC News, Beijing.
Oh, just incredible video there. All right, coming up on Morning News now, a teenage girl and her family fighting for life-changing care.
They don't care for my safety. All I think is that they would like themselves or their money.
When we return, why that family says they were denied coverage and what happened when our team stepped in. We'll be right back. We are back with our series, The Cost of Denial, where we examine the challenges Americans face in dealing with insurance coverage. Well, this morning we're taking a look at one teen's agonizing battle with daily seizures. Her doctors recommended a procedure they say could help, but her family's insurance refused to cover it. That is, until days after our team started asking questions. NBC News correspondent Maggie Vespa has the details.
Minutes into our interview with Brandy Sharp about her daughter Camry's seizures, we had to pause.
He's coming down. Do you need to go?
You can go.
Dad, Brian, brings 13-year-old Camry in the midst of a seizure to the couch, her eyes glazed over, fists clenched. Norris, the alert dog, by Camry's side.
Good boy.
What are those 15 to 20 minutes like as a mom?
They're hard. It's like watching the Camry light go out. It's okay, I got you.
It's a scene this rural Illinois family wants to share. Cambry, who has a severe form of epilepsy, goes through as many as 4 seizures a day. She had a second seizure just a few hours later.
I worry that every minute that she has a seizure is damage to her brain. These are the medications that she has used.
Having exhausted the list of possible medications, 28. Brandy says their doctors recommended neuromodulation with deep brain stimulation, in which surgeons place probes deep in the brain that send electrical stimulation to help prevent seizures. NBC News spoke with pediatric neurosurgeons not involved with Cambry's care who agree the procedure can be effective.
I know that there are other children who have it.
Have your doctors told you that it has been done in other children? And covered in other children?
Yes.
Finally, but for Cambry, insurance said no. Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield denied coverage days before the surgery was scheduled to take place.
They said it was not FDA approved for children under the age of 18.
And that's true, but the doctors treating Cambry tell us the procedure usually is approved by insurance for minors who qualify. To Cambry, it felt personal.
They don't care for my safety.
Do you think that they were thinking about you when they said that?
All I think is that they were thinking about themselves or their money.
NBC News reached out to Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield asking about Cambry's case. 3 days later, the insurer reversed its decision. Anthem Blue Cross telling NBC News it previously had not received all of Cambry's medical information, and once we received that information demonstrating that her treatment options are limited, we approved the deep brain stimulation treatment. Go ahead and in the middle there. We showed the statement to Brandy. She was skeptical.
They have been her insurance provider since she was maybe a year old. They have all of her records.
Why do you think they reversed their decision?
I believe that they reversed that decision because NBC News reached out to them and they knew that there was going to be coverage about the fact that they were denying care for a child.
You think it's that simple?
I do.
Can I have a hug? Cambry's surgery is now scheduled for next month.
I told her that no matter what it takes, I'll always fight her and get the care she needs.
And an update from that insurance company, Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield now telling NBC News they're actually changing their policy to cover the surgery Cambry was seeking for pediatric and adolescent patients who meet other clinical criteria, potentially saving future families from the hardships the Sharps have endured. Back to you.
All right, Maggie, incredible reporting. Thank you so much. Well, let's stay with health news. For many people taking prescribed antibiotics, it can come with those side effects, right? Upset stomach, maybe other digestive problems. Well, this morning we're breaking down why that happens and how to safely manage that. Dr. Trisha Pasricha is a gastroenterologist at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. She's also author of the book, You've Been Pooping All Wrong, How to Make Your Bowel Movements a Joy. And she just published an article on this from the Washington Post. She's with us now. Good morning, doctor. Great to have you with us. So first off, why is it that antibiotics wreak havoc on our stomach?
Great to be back, Savannah. Antibiotics do a terrific job of fighting the bacteria that make us sick. But the concern has been that they may also catch some of the healthy bacteria in our gut in their crossfire. Remember, in our microbiomes, we have these trillions of bacteria living among us. They're fermenting fiber. They're supporting our immune system. Those can be impacted by antibiotics. And then some antibiotics have effects on the gut that have absolutely nothing to do with the microbiome. And I think people don't often appreciate that. Some antibiotics, like azithromycin, which is really common in Z-Paks that people take for community-acquired pneumonia, they actually bind to receptors in the gut wall called motilin receptors, and that causes contractions, and that's why many people feel stomach cramps, nausea, belly aches when they take antibiotics.
Doctor, are all antibiotics created equal here, or are there some that are more likely to give you these side effects?
Well, we got some clues from a new study that came out in Nature Medicine last month that looked at about 15,000 people, and it found that certain antibiotics, like clindamycin and fluoroquinolones, they caused pretty profound microbiome changes that were still detectable even years after taking a single course. But then there were other antibiotics like amoxicillin, azithromycin, cephalosporins, which are really commonly prescribed here in the U.S. They had far more modest effects. effect. So for me, the kind of take home is not that my microbiome is doomed if I take antibiotics, but really that all antibiotics are not the same and all microbiomes are not the same. We all come to this with a different baseline microbiome. If you're immunocompromised, you're older, you may be at a greater risk of disruption. So it's always worth asking your doctor, is this the narrowest antibiotic option that's actually going to work for me?
I know when I have been prescribed antibiotics for one thing or another, oftentimes the doctor will say, also go get a probiotic, which you can just get at your pharmacy, and you'll take that alongside it during this time. Does that help? Is there anything else that helps?
Well, here's the thing. When you're on antibiotic, you think that grabbing a probiotic would protect the microbiome. That's what we want to do, and it makes intuitive sense, except several studies have found that probiotic supplements do very little when you're on antibiotics. And in fact, they might even do the opposite of what you want. There was a big study in Cell in 2018 that found that people who took probiotics after antibiotics actually took longer to recover their microbiome. And there may be some exceptions, again, if you're immunocompromised, at a high risk for something called C. difficile infection, it's worth talking to your doctor. But for most people, save your money. I tell people to focus on 3 things instead. 1, eat fiber. Fiber is so important because that is what feeds your microbes, and they produce compounds that can help heal the gut lining and also have anti-inflammatory benefits in the rest of your body. But it's not just fiber. It's actually eating a variety of fibers. Everyone thinks fiber is just one thing. It's all the same. Feeding your microbes different fiber types actually supports different species of microbiomes. And a diverse microbiome is a hallmark of health. And then lastly, probiotic foods are incredibly important. And I'm talking about fermented foods, things like Greek yogurt, kimchi. I quote this trial that came out of Stanford a few years ago at almost every dinner party I attend, and it found that people who ate fermented foods every day, they not only had a more beneficial bacteria in their microbiome, but they also had decreases in 19 different inflammatory proteins in their blood.
Wow, that is super interesting. All right, Dr. Tricia Pasricha, thanks again for being with us. Good to see you. Coming up, a Google engineer accused of using insider information to win more than $1 million on a popular prediction platform. The criminal charges against him, that's coming up in your Money Minute. And he's in his bag. We'll introduce you to the designer behind a handbag being called the New Birkin of Manhattan. It's getting a lot of hype online. Morning News Now. We'll be right back. Lululemon is calling a truce with its founder. The company's been in a feud with him for years. NBC News Business and Economy reporter Emily Lorsch has our Money Minute and will explain. Hey, Emily, good morning. Hey, Savannah, good morning. That's right. Lululemon and its founder, Chip Wilson, are ending their battle, at least for now. According to Lululemon, the agreement involves adding 2 new board members and a donation to the area in Vancouver where the company was created. Wilson owns nearly 9% of the activewear maker and has been criticizing the company for years. As part of this agreement, Wilson will hold off on any additional negative commentary for a year and a half. Lululemon reports quarterly earnings next week, and its new CEO is set to step in later this year. Over at Google, a software engineer living in Switzerland is facing charges for allegedly using insider information to score more than $1 million on the prediction market platform Polymarket. Federal prosecutors allege he bet that Google's 2025 most searched person would be the singer David, who's currently facing murder charges. Google tells NBC News it's working with police, saying this is a, quote, serious breach of its policies, and Polymarket says it's also cooperating and dedicated to, quote, maintaining accurate, fair, and transparent markets. Meanwhile, Travis Kelce is coming out full force for his hometown teams. First this past weekend, that viral moment of him chugging a beer while sitting courtside with his fiancée Taylor Swift as the Cleveland Cavaliers face off against the New York Knicks. And now he's diving into baseball in a major way, purchasing a minority stake in the Cleveland Guardians. The football star telling ESPN how much he loves Cleveland, saying he's, quote, just a kid from the Heights living the dream. Did you see that viral chugging moment?
Oh, yeah, of course I did. And Taylor's just smiling, looking on.
It was so clean, too. Like, his mouth wasn't even touching the beer.
That was insanely impressive. I was like, I just
couldn't believe it.
Yeah, good for him. Very exciting. Thanks, Emily.
Well, there's a new bag in town. It's being called the New Birkin of Manhattan. It was created by a Haitian immigrant and is now going totally viral and setting trends here in New York. NBC News daily anchor Jennifer Aswan explains.
Customers are lining the block. We are on the manhunt that Harvard New York's fashion values are on right now,
and facing a wait list over 67,000 people long. The whole website sold out in like less than 5 minutes. All for one bag.
this was related and it was in the ad of Pierre Lavore bags for your collection.
When I saw this green cowhide, I was gagged.
The man behind the cowhide clutch craze is Francis Pierre Lavore. Every bag bearing his namesake is crafted by hand in Harlem, New York. So this is where you make the bags. About how many each month?
I'm trying to make like 350, 400, and 450 because of the demand.
In this room?
So I hit here my studio.
Lavore came to the United States more than 40 years ago. He didn't speak any English, but he did have a dream. Did your family support your dreams before you came to the States?
Actually, me and my mother. My father was not. Basically, it's just like
it was gendered.
Yeah, it's gendered.
Lavore says 12 years ago he made his very first bag.
After I created it, I was like, okay, I feel like I have a sell for my bags. This is something I can do. So I went back and took the classes.
The designer was selling at New York's Grand Bazaar, a fashion and vintage hotspot. Then one customer posted a few now viral videos.
Last week, I fell in love with a local NYC designer, and when I shared a video about it, it went totally viral.
I was like shaking, I was like kind of scared. And I was like, I don't understand what happened. So she sent me a message. She's like, I posted one of the bags on TikTok. It went viral.
Suddenly, the board was swarmed with customers and interest.
Everybody wants a bag, eventually they will get a bag, but it's not going to be that quick. Like you order something like the next day.
It's not instant. His works have now made their way to runways and sparked an all-out internet obsession. But the craftsman remains committed to authenticity and privacy. You could outsource, you could go to stores, but you haven't done that. Why?
I wanted to create something different, right? Everybody has the same bags, same colors, and I feel like people need to put some colors in their life.
I think about the young Pierre you described, who was discouraged from sewing. What would you say to yourself now?
Don't ever give up sewing if you have a dream.
Thanks to Zig Zag for that story. Also, the commercial stores is probably wondering, the smaller, medium bags, they go between $200 and $700, and bigger ones around $1,000. Good morning. Thanks for kicking off your Thursday with us. I'm Savannah Sellers.
I'm Joe Fryer. Right now on Morning News Now, trading blows. Tit-for-tat military strikes levied by both Iran and the U.S. now throwing that already fragile ceasefire further into question. President Trump, meanwhile, painting a hazy picture of the path forward. He's suggesting peace talks that he previously called promising could still collapse. It's all breeding more uncertainty on Main Street and Wall Street ahead of November's pivotal midterm elections. But is the commander-in-chief really worried about GOP votes? We've got the latest in a moment. Also this morning, a bombshell admission from former First Lady Jill Biden. A new tell-all interview shining a light on then-President Biden's final weeks on the campaign trail back to 2024. The stunning
Okay, we already talked about
that
that.
she says had her terrified for her husband's health. Plus,
The mercy of what's happened.
I hope y'all enjoyed the little today in the news. With that being said, thank y'all for being here. Hope to see y'all again soon. Peace.